our characters. So we'll talk about the Mojigoi of the lesson 1. So we will talk about the kanji. It comes from the Chinese character, the hiragana. So we can practice also reading our hiragana. Then follow with the romaji and the English version of it. Okay. So let's dive in now. Let's see if you can read the first kanji that we're gonna have. The first kanji that we have. Okay, let's take a look at this one. How to read this kanji. Okay. Okay, let's see if your answer is correct. Okay. How about if we're gonna answer it now or read it in romaji? Okay, very good. So that is, we have our watashi. Okay, watashi. So it means I. It means I. Watashi for our word. Okay, how about for this next kanji? Okay, so we have here, this is what we call okurigana. Okay, okurigana. So there will be an additional word for the, or additional word for the kanji. Okay. So how to read this one? Very good. So we have our word watashi tachi. Okay, watashi tachi. Watashi tachi. In English, it means we. Okay. We have our we. Okay, very good. Okay, how about for this kanji? How to read this kanji? One. Okay, very good. So we have our Anata. Okay, Anata. And in English, it means you. Okay. So for Anata, we try to avoid using this much if we already know the person. Okay. So instead of calling them Anata, just call them with their name. But if you don't know, just say them for the Anata once, but once you already know their name, let's use already their name. Okay. Next kanji is we have our ano hito. Okay. Ano hito. Okay. So this one, we have our anohito. And for romaji is we have anohito. So what is the meaning of our anohito? It means that person. That person, he or she. That person. Okay? And it has an equivalent form. Instead of using our anohito, we can use our anokata. Anokata. Instead of using this kanji, we can use this one. It becomes anokata and changing our hito to kata. Anokata. Anokata. Okay. So it means same meaning, but this one is more polite. Okay. This is more for our politeness. Next word is our word minasan. Okay. Okay. It means ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Or you can say instead of word minna, or you can say also minasama. Okay, so we have, let's go with our suffixes. Okay, so we have our san, chan, kun, and jin. Okay, let's go first with san. San is means for our Mr. and Miss. Okay. So once you know their name, for example, I know my friend Takeshi, I call him Takeshi-san. Okay. Then for the child's name, for the younger ones, we're using the suffixes for chan and kun. It can be also used for the pet's name. We have chan. So if we know Kero-chan, okay, that's the reason we have that one. Or Kuru-chan, we have that one too. Then kun is for the male one. Then we have for Jin, a suffix for the nationality. So for example, Philippine nihonjin, okay, nation, then adding jin, that becomes a nationality of the person. Next one, let's go with our kanji. For this, we have our sensei, okay, sensei. It means for our teacher. So for our teacher, we have the following here. This is not only limited for having a teacher, but it actually means for someone that you get an advice. So it can be also for the pastors, or like you are asking for any advice for them. Even doctor, you can also call them sensei. Okay, let's go with our next kanji here. Okay, so we have here for our kyoshi. Okay. Kyoshi, it means teacher or instructor. So most, or the appropriate word for me is actually kyoshi, okay, instructor, because it comes from the word of kyoshitsu. Once we have our kyoshitsu, it becomes classroom. Now, let's take a look now with our next word here. We have our word gakse. Okay, gakse, it means student. Now, we have our next word here is we have our kaishain. Okay, kaishain, it means office employee. So, but if there will be a specific word for our company, so company not shine. So for example, I want to say, I'm a company employee of Nintendo, Nintendo not shine. Okay, next word is we have here now, we have our ginkoin. Okay, ginkoin, it means bank employee. It comes from the word of ginko. Okay. Ginko, it means bank. Okay, then we're adding in for this kanji of this one. So once we see this kanji, it means a person. So ginkoin, and we are able to see that earlier with our kaishain. Now we have our next kanji here for our isha, for our doctor. So this is another kanji for the person. So in our, once we study kanji, you will see this one for the person. So we have for isha is for our doctor. Okay, we have our next word here, our kenkyusha, okay, researcher. Okay. So if you see this one, we are able to see this one as well to our isha, where we have the reading of Isha, okay, for, and we have our Kenkyusha. So it has a reading of Sha. Next word. Next word is we have our engineer, okay, engineer. Okay, so this is katakana, a borrowed word. Next word is we have this kanji. This means big, okay, and follow with our study. So big study, it will become now daigaku. Daigaku, it means university. Next word, we have our word, our byoin. Okay. Byoin, it means hospital. So be careful to pronounce that word because we have another word that called byoin. Okay. Byoin. And it has a different kanji as well. So it will create a byoin. Byoin. Okay. So it has there, it means parlor. Okay. So that is a different one of the kanji. So maybe if you, my stomach is aching, then I want to go to Bioin. Then you got shocked because you have a new haircut because you said Bioin instead of Bioin. Okay. Next word is we have our Denki. It means light. It comes from the character of this one. It means electric. Then ki, it means atmosphere or feelings. So feeling of the electricity, it becomes light. Next word is we have our dare or donata. It means who. What is the difference of dare and donata? Dare, it's for our plain form, while our donata, is for our polite form. So as we study our Japanese as a beginner, it's better to use first our donata, okay? Especially if you're talking to your teachers or to your bosses, okay, or if you meet someone people for the first time, we can use donata. Next word we have our site, okay? For our this one, should be our site. Let's put here. Sai is for our hiragana, okay? Then sai for our how to read. So how we're going to say 1-year-old and so on and so on. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So this is the chart. We have 1-year-old. We have very especially we don't say ichisai, but instead we say issai. Okay. What else are we special? We also have our 8 years old. We have hasai, hasai. And we have our 10 years old, we have our jusai. So we don't say jusai, instead jusai. And our 20 years old, we have our hatachi. So how about if we come our 23 years old, we have our niju, okay, then sansai. Niju, sansai. So we will talk about our future lessons about number. So let's remember first the following for the special for the age. And let's make it for our question. We have our nansai. Okay, this kanji it means nan. It's what? So it become nansai. Nansai desu ka? Then instead of using our nansai, we also have our oikutsu desu ka? Okay, same meaning of nansai, but this is more polite. So if Japanese will ask you instead of are they heard you nansai desu ka and you use oikutsu desu ka, they will feel you are very good in Japanese. Next is we have our hi and ie. Okay. So this one, be careful, make it prolong it because if you say ie, it's house, but ie is no. Okay. And for our plain form, we have our un and we have un. Okay, yes, or we have our no. Next word is we have our shitsure desu ga. Okay, excuse me, but so for example, you want to know their name. Shitsure desu ga, onamae wa nan desu ka? Shitsure desu ga, onamae wa nan desu ka? Or you can say shitsure desu ga, oikutsu desu ka? Next word is we have onamae wa. Okay, onamae wa. So let's have for our here again here, onamae wa. And for Romaji, how to read that way, it becomes onamae. Onamae wa. It become a question. Okay, so almost sound like change it to I. Onamae wa. You don't say onamae wa. Onamae wa. What is your name? It's you can say onamae wa nan desu ka? Okay, you can say that way. Because this one is more indirect, okay? Like saying your name. Okay. So that's the reason if you're familiar with this movie, we have Kimi no namae wa. That is a plain form of what is your name. Next word is we have our word hajimemashite. Okay, so we use this one if we meet someone for the first time, but once we meet them again for the second time, you don't have to use this one because that's already rude. It seems that you already forgot their name. So you can already, once you meet them for the second time, you can already say konnichiwa or genki desu ka. Okay, next one is we have dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Okay. So be careful with our pronunciation here. We don't say onegai shimasu or onegai shimasu. It's a silent U. This word doesn't have any direct translation in English, but in this context, once we do the jiko shokai or the self-introduction, it means like having, it's my pleasure to meet you. Next word is we have our kochirawa. blank sandes. Okay, so this is Miss or Miss. Okay, so we use this phrase, for example, if we are introducing someone, so we're using our word, our kochira. Okay, kochira wa blank sandes. Next word is we have blank karakimashta. Okay, blank karakimashta. You see this one, I came from. But be mindful of this one. For example, you are right now in Japan and you came from Philippines, for example. You can say Philippine karakimashta. But if you're in the Philippines right now and you want to say, I came from Philippines, you don't say this phrase. So you're gonna use karakimashta, the place that you are in, and you want to say, I came from this particular country. Now, Sensei, how will say instead, I live in the Philippines. Okay, I live in the Philippines. So we're gonna use instead blank ni sunde imasu. Sunde imasu. So we are not going to use this one. So for example, I want to say I live right now in Quezon City, okay, or in the Philippines, okay, because I'm now exist right now in the Philippines. Philippine ni sunde imasu. Philippine ni sunde imasu. Like I'm saying here now, I live in the Philippines. So there's a difference of saying here that karakimashta to our as blank ni sunde imasu. Now, let's take a look now with the countries with here. We have for our America, like America, Igirisu for our England, Indo for our India, Indonesia, okay, is for Indonesia, Kankoku is we have for our South Korea, then Thai for our Thailand, Chugoku, China, followed with our Deutsche for our Germany, then Nihon is for our Japan, France, Brazil, Brazil, and for Philippines, we have for Philippines, Egypt is Egypto. Now, how about if we have our country and we'll make it that in nationality? For example, America, then we're going to country, then we're going to add our G. Okay, country plus G. For example, America, it will become America G. America G, it becomes a nationality now of saying American. America G. So for example, we want to say Indonesian. Indonesia, so we just change our America to our Indonesia. Indonesia. So from there, we will able to produce now the word Indonesia G, Indonesian. Same thing here for our Philippines, okay, become our Philippine G, Filipino. Okay. But if we're going to have our Japanese now, just simple remove our Philippine to Nihon, and we will have our Nihon Jin. But we don't put any space to all of that. Just simple saying here Nihon Jin. Okay. Nihonjin, Nihonjin, something like that. Then, if we're going to remove the jin, then we're going to add a suffix of go. It means for the language, country plus our suffix go. It becomes a language. So it becomes nihongo. In Japan, in English, when we say Japanese, it has two meanings, the person and it's the language. But in Japanese, they are completely different words, they are separate words. So we have our Nihongo and we have our Nihonjin. Okay. How about if we are going to have our America? Okay. Do we say, for the English, do we say Americago? So this is wrong. Okay. So we cannot say America go. So instead, for the language, it's become now ego, ego. How about for the English? Okay, for the igirisu, okay, igirisu, do we say igirisu go? Okay. English is also an English-speaking country, so we don't use our igirisu go, so that is wrong. So instead, we still use our ego. Ego, it means English. How about for the Philippines? Do we say Philippine go? Okay, so that is also wrong because in Philippines there are several languages that we have. So let's go with the most common dialect in the Philippines. We have our Tagalog. Tagalog, it means Tagalog. Okay, so for that one, we also have for our Ejiputo, Ejiputo. So we don't say Ejiputogo. So that is wrong because their language is Arabiago. Arabiago for the language. Now, let's make it now in a conversation. It makes saying here, for example, I want to say, Nihonjin wa nani go ga dekimasu ka? Nihonjin wa nani go ga dekimasu ka? It means what language does Japanese can speak? Okay. So how we'll make that in one hour conversation? Just only change our nani go to become the language. It becomes nihongo ga dekimasu. Nihonjin wa nihongo. Then we are going to drop ka because it's not anymore a question. So we have Nihonjin wa nihongo ga dekimasu. Okay? Japanese can speak Nihongo. Now, how about if we're going to have this one? Let's change this person. The Philippine wa. Then I will make a question now. Nani go ga dekimasu ka? Okay. Philippine Jin. Okay, let's add Jin here. Philippine Jin wa nani go ga dekimasu ka? Okay. What language does Filipino can speak or able? So how are we going to answer that? Just change only to nani go to Tagalog go ga dekimasu. Then we're going to drop our ka. Now let's have change a little bit with this one. How about Filipino are very talented because they can speak multiple language. So we say Philippine Jin wa Tagalog go to. Okay, and let's say ego. Ego ga dekimasu. Okay, so we have our to here. To is means and. Okay. Filipino is able to speak Tagalog and English. Or if you want to add another language, nihongo ga dekimasu. Okay. Or we can also say Philippine Jin wa Tagalog go to. Okay. To Tagalog go to ego ga dekimasu. And we can put here nihongo mo. Okay, mo is a particle of also. So we're saying nihongo mo dekimasu. Nihongo mo dekimasu. Okay. Also, nihongo is able. How about if I'm gonna say now for our let's have an assuming we want to say Taijin wa nihongo ga dekimasu ka? Taijin wa nihongo ga dekimasu ka? Can Thailand speak Nihongo? So if you want to negate back my assumption, okay, you will use iye Taijin wa. Okay, Taijin wa Nihongo wa dekimasen. Okay. So you're changing our particle to wa because you want to reverse back my assumption is incorrect and making the verb to a negative. Dekimasen. Iye Tajin wa nihongo wa dekimasen. And you can say here, Taijin wa Taigo ga dekimasu. So before we end the class, how about this one? Minna. So, Minna, Minna wa nanigo ga dekimasu ka? Minna wa nanigo ga dekimasu ka? Okay, so comment your answer in this video and let me check what language you can speak on. Okay, see you in our next lesson. Ja, mata ne!